Yeah, you got a good crowd.
I love it. John, how are you?
All right, yourself?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Family doing well?
Well, everybody's okay. How about you?
Sugarcoat the news that you give her. She said she came and asked me a couple questions. I gave her answers that she didn't want. She said, I'm only going to talk to Dave. He gives me good news.
I think she's starting to forget stuff. She was at Warrenville and Bloomfield the night Mary said she was unaware of some stuff that was going on that she should have been aware of. So maybe she's slipping just a little bit. But God bless her, she's got the best attitude. She's going to be, what, 95 this month?
I think it's like 93, but hey, I can get around like her at 93.
No kidding.
Be as sharp as she is. I could live to that age, but
Yep.
I know a lot of people that are like 80 and can't do what she can.
I know.
And I wouldn't want to be alive like that.
No. If I'm confined, let me out of here.
My brain doesn't work at all.
Yeah. Or even worse yet, your body doesn't work at all, but your brain's still going really good. That would be horrible.
Good turnout?
It'll do. Just enough to make me feel like it's fun. John. Oh, Barbara. Yeah. Not Barb. Barbara. Yes. Found some, huh?
I got 8 of them for less than you would have made them for, and they're from a guy in Kentucky. So
Good.
solid walnut. Beautiful.
Where'd you find them? Online?
Yes,
Of course.
but not Amazon because they're all
Cheap crap. Yeah. Good. Problem solved.
except now I have to cut off part of about a third of the screw. When I
That'll cost you about $80.
I wasn't asking.
Oh, goodness. We may have to get out a few more chairs.
This is nice. This is good.
Yeah. We generally have about this many, I think. A few new faces, a lot of folks that come every year.
Good evening.
Somebody lift their lights
Good evening.
What?
in their car. An interior light?
Oh,
Can
it's
you
the
hear
big
me?
black van?
No.
Yeah?
no.
Okay. Good.
There's a dome light on out there?
Few moments to
It's the
get a seat.
older model.
We'll get started.
Okay.
So, yeah, before we get started, that's okay, Viv. You outranked me. Good evening. My name is Dave Sabathney, and I'm the president and CEO of the Western DuPage Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of the board of directors and our staff and our members, we'd like to welcome you here to the State of the City address. And I know nobody would ask, why I would wear a mask, but I feel compelled to tell you the last time the chamber had a big event, we had about 130 people in a room. And it was our annual meeting. It was about 4 days before we were to leave on our chamber-hosted trip to Prague, the Danube River, and Budapest. 3 days later, my wife and I both tested positive and were not able to travel to Prague and Budapest and the Danube River. Now, in a couple weeks, we are hosting a trip to Vietnam, and I have no intention of missing it. In fact, I'll tell you that if there was scientific certainty that if I pierced my left ear and wore garlic, that I would be absolutely healthy, I would do it. And you'd be sitting much further back in your chairs. So if you'd like information on our trips, we are hosting a trip to Costa del Sol, Spain in October. We're doing an information session on that on Monday evening, wdcctravel.com, wdcctravel.com. We'd love to, it's open to everybody. It's a cultural trip. This would have been our 12th opportunity to host a reception and introduce the mayor for a State of the City address, but we missed a year because of COVID. So 12 years is a long time, and the last 3 years have been, well, kind of special. We've learned much over the last 3 years. Many of us learned the delicate condition of our mental health and how close we travel to the edge on a regular basis, and we no longer take that for granted for others or ourselves. We learned how important our community is to give us the certainty that we need to continue when it seems like everything is moving and changing and uncertain. And we look to the leaders of our schools and our libraries and our park districts and our first responders, our police and fire, and to our municipal leaders to get that certainty. And they did so and more during this time, and we appreciate that. We've learned how to be tolerant without sacrificing our beliefs or expecting others to sacrifice their own. This is progress. This is a positive thing. We learned how strong our businesses are, how nimble and resilient and creative they are. And I could tell you so many stories of our local businesses who supported their employees in such extraordinary ways before there was any promise or even mention of public support. And they created opportunities for people to go back to work in ways that kept them productive, engaged, and supported, and also while keeping them safe. Prosperity is alive here in Warrenville, and you can see it in the volume of development, activity, the amount of programs and services that are offered throughout the community to our residents and our businesses. And most of all, we see it in the eyes of our children and our neighbors and our friends. We've learned much over the last 3 years, and much will be written about how the world responded to a global pandemic. The chapter on Warrenville, however, will be summarized very easily. We came together, we emerged stronger. It is with great honor that I welcome Mayor David Brummel, and I do so with sincere gratitude for his strength and his leadership. Our mayor, my friend, the Honorable Mayor David Brummel.
Thank you, David. As always, well done. Perfect. Well, good evening.
Good evening.
And welcome. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, before we get started, there's a white pickup truck out there in the parking lot with the dome light on. So if you've got a white pickup truck, you don't want a surprise later. All right. Well, thank you, David. As always, an elegant introduction. I very much appreciate that. We appreciate the Chamber of Commerce hosting the event tonight again. I thank you all for attending. It has become somewhat of a treasure to be able to meet in groups again. I know for me, having to give my summary in the past, sitting up there with no audience, it just wasn't as alive as it could be. So be a good audience, okay? Because you're here. That's enough, right? I wanted to start again with a couple more thank yous. First of all, the staff for the City of Warrenville. I can't say enough positive things about the people that we have working for our community. You simply have no idea the things that go on behind the scenes, the analysis that goes on, the research that goes on, the decisions that have to be made, the policies that have to be proposed to the elected officials, the consultants that have to be brought in for things that we don't have the manpower to handle. So much stuff goes on every single day in the city that you're not aware of. I'm here to tell you that these people are the best. And currently, Unlike some other places, we are fully staffed. We have every position filled, and it's not because we lowered our standards either, because we don't do that. We attract good people to Warrenville because we have a culture of teamwork, no silos, people getting together and solving problems. That attracts good people. We have good people. So for starters, how about a big round of applause for our staff for the City of Warrenville. Elected officials. We have a great city council. We have 8 aldermen, as you're probably aware, all of whom are up here for one reason, and that's to make sure that Warrenville is headed in a good direction. Make decisions based on the long-term best interests of the community. Every single one of those people up there does that every single time they come. And there's a dichotomy in city government you may or may not be aware of. There's staff and elected officials. The elected officials make the policy, the staff carries out the policy. Both of these groups know that very, very well and stay in their lane. So the staff helps the elected officials make policy, the elected officials make that policy, the staff follows it, and the city runs smoothly. So we couldn't do that without that teamwork. So always keep in mind that what happens at the City of Warrenville isn't one person, 2 people, it's an entire group of people that are working together to make it happen every single day. I have a personal thank you that I have to make tonight because, well, of course, because I want to. And that would be to my lovely life partner, Mary, who's been with me. We've been together now, we're pushing 55 years. Sure, go ahead, yeah. She has literally, over the years, saved my life several times. I'm a typical guy. I get sick, and I get really sick, and I just sit there, and I figure it'll pass, I'll be okay, it'll go away. But every once in a while, I'll be sitting there just minding my own business, and I'll hear, "You are going to special care!" And she literally saved my life a couple of times, because if I wouldn't have gone in, I wouldn't be here tonight. So thank you, Mary, and for all your support over the years. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to mix a little bit of history in, because Warrenville wasn't always the way it is today. I'm sure if you've been here for any length of time, you notice that the community is constantly changing. I kind of divided arbitrarily our history into before incorporation and now. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of before incorporation to give you an idea of what we came from, and then we're going to talk about the year 2022 and what we accomplished during this past year, and then the 2023 expectations and what we might anticipate coming up. So that's how we're going to kind of schedule things tonight, and we'll begin right now. We're going to consider Warrenville 1.0 before incorporation, okay? And Warrenville 5.0 is where we're at today, and of course that number is going to keep growing, maybe after we're gone, maybe while we're still here, but the number will change, obviously, over time. This was in the funny papers. I just had to bring it because we're talking about change, and I love talking about change. In case you can't read it, the gentleman is saying, "Look, I followed my own slide rule from high school." And she says, "Wait, you know how to use a slide rule?" He says, "Sure. You slide this part like this and that part like this, and that's pretty much it." And that's about what I remember. Does anybody remember slide rules? I can remember high school, and we were just on the cusp of getting the handheld calculators. And if you don't tell anybody this, don't spread this around, please, but I was on an intramural volleyball team, and we were called the slide rules. Our record was less than enviable, but we did know how to use the slide rules. Okay, this 1956 Warrenville. It's a little bit hard to read, but for some of you, there should be some familiar names up there. George Richter was our insurance agent for many, many years. Fireside Engineering was up on the west side of town, the Warrenville School of Dance. J.H. Bowig and Sons were here forever. I remember John Bowig Sr. always sat in the same pew in church behind us on Sunday morning, and then, of course, his sons took over, his grandsons took over in the Bowig building, and now it's been repurposed by some other folks and 2 new businesses there. Dannick's Food Market, I have a picture tonight I'll show you later of where that used to be. When I was learning to drive, I got to take the car down on Sunday morning and get the donuts after church if I didn't get into trouble, which I did sometimes. But some of these names, Home Lumber Company was right uptown here. It's long gone. But if you've been around for a while, you'll know that these are the people that started Warrenville, got it going. And then the incorporation was the big change, because before incorporation, it was kind of a tentative arrangement. People were living here. It was a community. but it didn't have a secured future. Incorporation is what gave us that secured future. One of the people responsible for that tonight, who also has a birthday this month, is in the front row, former Mayor Vivian Lund. So just a little, Mount Hardware, by the way, used to be the building right across from us over here. The hardware store has moved. That went through three generations of the Kleinwachter family before it got into the hands that it's now Ace Hardware. It's always good to see that progression, and the building's not empty. It's being used for the purpose that it was meant to be used for. So Rizika Drugs, anybody go get their ice cream cone after school? That was a big thing for us when we were kids in grade school. Ed Rizika gave out free ice cream cones to everybody who brought their report card in with favorable marks on it. If you've been here a while, if you take that center part of the building off, that was our first library, the community building, which was a CCC project from the 30s, I believe. I can remember going in there with my son, and it was a tight fit because when you went in, you had to go like this, and when you wanted to turn around, you had to back out and go this way because it was very, very crowded. That's where our library got the start. Go to our library presently and tell me that that evolution hasn't been a huge success. Because look where we're at now with that library. But somebody started in that little building, volunteers, and made it happen, and now we've got a professionally run organization that's the pride of our community. The Carousel Restaurant, many, many years, was on the corner, the northwest corner of Butterfield Road and Batavia Road. It sat in ruins for many, many years. This is what happens when you make good plans. And again, the council working with the elected officials with a vacant piece of property. That was a derelict building that sat there for many years. People from Wheaton or from another community used to say it was a drug dealer place. It wasn't, but that was kind of the reputation. Now we have 71 apartments for rent-subsidized seniors on that corner facing the river, right in the part of the downtown that's beautiful. Another evolution of a particular parcel that went in the right direction. So what we're going to do tonight is, again, look at some ways that we have evolved, we've renewed, and where we're at now. We certainly honor our past because that's what's made us who we are today. We will never, ever surrender our small town heart. I think that's one of the things that sets us apart from a lot of other communities. We are geographically a suburban community. We can't avoid that, and there are certain responsibilities and limits that puts on us, but they'll never change our heart. And I think most of the folks that move here feel that way, and that's one of the reasons they stay once they get here. We have a strategic plan that we put together in 2015. Now, basically what this is an umbrella for all of our actions. We try to make sure that everything that we do here at the City of Warrenville somehow conforms to our plans, our goals on the strategic plan. So decisions aren't made just willy-nilly or whatever we feel like or who's got influence or whatever. We always reference this strategic plan, and even when we get our memos and stuff from staff, they'll reference on there, this is strategic plan number 5. So we have an idea that, we have a plan, this is what we want to do, and this is how we do it. Those are the 6 divisions. We're going to talk about each one of those for 2022 and 2023 individually. To give you an idea of the subsets involved in economic development, I'll let you read those for yourself so you have an idea of how considered this is. It's not just a term that we throw out there and it sounds good. There's thought behind it, just like everything that we try to put together, so that it makes sense and we can actually look at that goal and say, okay, how are we reaching that goal by doing this or by doing something else? The second one is fiscal conservatism. Uphold the city's record of, not spend money that you don't have. Don't take on unnecessary debt. Don't spend one-time money for operations because that's one of the worst things you can do. We try to take good government 101 and make sure that we follow that. Open space and environment, most people that I talk to, that's one of the treasured things about Warrenville. You're within minutes of being on a path and being out in nature, no matter where you're at in town. It's our goal to preserve and protect that and expand it when we can. That's something that's extremely important to all of us, and we had to make sure that we spelled it out in our plan. City infrastructure, Millions of dollars get spent over years taking care of the things that we own. We have plans to make sure that there's money to do that. We either get outside money, we get a lot of grants from the state and from the federal government, and we have a capital maintenance and replacement plan that money is put into every year to make sure that everything that's of substance that the city owns has money to be repaired and maintained and replaced eventually. So the big trucks you see, the roads, the curbs, the street lights, all of those things are in the plan so that when they wear out, there's money to replace them. That again is good government 101. So the money's there. It's always a difficult time to make sure the funding is allocated because we've been going through, as David said, interesting times the last couple of years. But that's what we try to do. Public safety, extremely important. We are consistently rated one of the safest communities in the state of Illinois. I consider that a badge of honor. 2 or 3 years ago, we were rated the safest community in the state. Clearly, this is something that our elected officials take very seriously. And diversity. We want everyone to be welcome in this community, to be respected, and to feel like this is their home. These are the reasons, these are the things that we try to put together to make sure that happens. We started about 1.5 years ago our IDEC commission, we'll talk about that a little bit later, to be intentional about making sure these things happen in our community. Not that we just, it's not just lip service, but this is how we want to live. This is what our culture needs to evolve into. So let's go to 2022, this past year. And we'll go through each of those 6 things twice. We'll do it for 2022 and for 2023. We have, if you've driven around town, lots of nice developments going on. Lexington Townhomes Unit 1 is finished. 106 units. They liked it so much here, they bought more property, and as we'll see later, there are 48 more units going in that area. Beautiful, beautiful property. Westland Apartments, again, luxury apartments. Apartments, the nature of apartments has changed dramatically. When Mary and I got married 54 years ago, I remember the apartment we had. It was not like that. But then again, the rent wasn't $3,000 a month either. So what these do is invite new people to the community, people who have disposable income, a lot of young marrieds, a lot of young professionals who can support our businesses, help our tax base. This type of development, because it requires very few services from us, helps support the older part of the community in many ways. So this is good stuff. These places are beautiful. If you get a chance to tour them, you'll say, yeah, I can understand why people would want to live here. It's very, very nice. Everton Townhomes, the same thing up on 59, 89 units, reasonably priced. They're all sold. Interesting, all of these developments we talk about that are finished are basically full. Because they're well done by developers that are well known. Lexington, for instance, wherever they develop, they leave their name in the product because they stay and they develop it and they're proud of what they do. That tells you something about the quality of that developer. They want their name on their product. That's a big deal. Riverview West Townhomes. This was originally to be owner-occupied homes, but the market has changed. They're going to be rentals now. They're along the river next to the big apartment complex. I can't imagine that they're going to not rent immediately. They're going to have these roof terraces, some of the things that people in the city like, but they can't find out here. You're going to find that a lot of the things that are being done now in the suburbs are to attract the people that, for one reason or another, want to leave the city, but they want some of those amenities that they enjoyed in the city. These types of developments provide that for folks. Westland, the one in Cantera, I remember getting the tour of that at their grand opening, for which they were 87% leased. But as we start the tour going down this beautiful hallway that looked like a high-end hotel, the first room on the right had a glass door, and it was the wine room. So, of course, you have to have a place to keep your wine, right? So here it is. That's the type of people that are renting these places and coming to town. They're expecting these amenities, and when they get them, they come and they stay, and then they go to our businesses. Lexington Trace 2 and 3, I mentioned that a minute ago. They're in progress right now. They had no trouble selling out their first 106 building units way before the place was built. Very nice units. Again, bringing the type of people to town who are going to enhance what we've got and appreciate what we have and support our businesses. some things that are approved construction but haven't really begun yet. If you know that 4M Enterprise is a shopping center on Route 59 as you go towards the tollway. There have been a number of restaurants there over the years and a number of businesses that kind of come and go. We're looking forward to a major remodeling of that and rehabbing of that, which will be a nice addition to the town. We talked about Lexington Trace, and that southwest district of our community was kind of a fallow field for decades. It really didn't change much since I was a child in town. Nothing much was happening there. So a number of years ago, we started realizing that that's going to develop at some point. We need to control that development. We have to make sure it's high quality. Well, we realized during that discussion, or those discussions, that we were going to need another water tower. So that's what we've got planned, and that's what's coming, as well as an iron filtration building. And I know you're going to be happy to hear that if you like Warrenville water. It'd be nice to get some of that iron out of the water. Interestingly enough, a quick aside about that, the people who are living in Lexington Trace, when they learned that there was going to be a water tower, they got very upset because they thought that was going to be detrimental to the apartment or the townhomes that they bought. So they filled the room at our plan commission meeting. And it was kind of a change for us elected officials who usually, when someone comes in to complain about a project, it's a long-term resident who doesn't want the community to change, because that's the way it's been for 35 years. Thank you. Now, we had people who were here for about 3 months who didn't want the community to change because they just moved here. So it was kind of interesting, but we worked with them as we always do. We managed to make that happen in a way that would not be detrimental to them. The well and iron filtration building will be architecturally matched to Lexington Trace so that it fits right in. We moved the water tower down to the Thorntons area. We had a plan for that for a long time. That's where we originally wanted the water tower, but Thorntons was not very cooperative until we got the right phone number to call, and then all of a sudden they were very cooperative. It's funny how that works. So anyway, that's working out very well. We're going to get the water tower. That's good for the new development in the Southwest District. It's good also for the rest of the town because, you know, the water thing is a loop. It all has to work together. This will complete our water towers. We'll have 5. That's all we're going to need. Down in the old part of town, that seems like it's never going to get done, but it will, because we are committed to doing that. We have a draft plan, what we'd like to see there, because that's what you really need if you're going to attract development. People want an idea of what you expect, and that way you can also hold their feet to the fire and say, that's not what we want this instead. We created that 3-way stop, which has proved to be no problem at all, and of course that will help when we get more development down there. The last thing you want in a downtown area is people shooting down the hill and shooting around the curve and not stopping. You want them to stop. Oh, there's a restaurant. Oh, there's a coffee shop. You want it to be safer for pedestrians and bikers also. That's been a success, and that will stay that way. We have a redevelopment plan, as you can see. You can't see the details, but you can get an idea of what we'd like to see. We're working on a zoning overlay district, which will allow us to put some creative things in that area, things that the community has said that they want. And if you could see the pictures there of the types of things that people have said, yeah, I'd like the buildings to look like that. I'd like them to look like that. So we have a pretty good idea from community input of what would go there. We have a great idea of what will work, and we're working on making that happen. There's still some more contamination to be dealt with, but that will be done, and eventually we will get that developed. I hope you noticed that on the way in. We struggled for years to get that going. We had some contretemps with Commonwealth Edison. We had a beautiful plan that was bigger than the one it was. And for years, Commonwealth Edison kept saying, good idea, keep going, everything's fine, until we got to the final plan when it landed on somebody's desk who said, nope, can't do that. You can't have anything under our power lines. So we had to redesign the whole thing, cut the scope back down a little bit. It cost us, it cost you a fair amount of extra money to make that happen. But what we got is beautiful, and it's almost done. We're still waiting on the windows, I think. But it's going to change with the landscaping and everything all down there, it will change the whole character of things downtown. And we are working on the Veterans Memorial is in the process of, in the next couple of years, being upgraded. So Mayor asked me about that. Building trends, things were down a little bit, as you might imagine. Construction has been hurt for a number of reasons. Prices have been exceptionally high. Tradesmen have been unavailable. There have been things that have been unavailable. So we've settled back down a little bit below what we had, but we're expecting that it's going to rebound because the whole area is rebounding. We are very fortunate to be part of DuPage County. DuPage County is very dynamic, and we're part of that. So these numbers don't mean too much now, but we'll take a look at them next year and see how much better they are. And fiscal conservatism will never die. We can thank our finance department, Kevin Dahlstrand. What that certificate of achievement means that everything in our finance department is done by the book, period. So when you get that particular certificate of achievement, it really means something because it means your finance department is doing exactly what they should be. They're following the law to the letter. Very important. Obviously, we're still in recovery mode. The hotel motel tax, the amusement tax, food and beverage taxes are all down to pre-19 levels, but we expect that they're going to rebound because they're rebounding all around us, and we've already seen it in our community. ARPA funds. This was a nice shot in the arm because obviously for a couple, 3 years, things were really, really down. So this $1,800,000 has really helped us do some things that we need to do. And again, Good Government 101, we're not using it for operations, we're using it for special projects that we've had to put off because we didn't have the money. So one-time money should be used for one-time things because if you spend it for operations, then it's gone, then what do you do with the operations? So we were very grateful for that. And it's still in the process of deciding how we're going to use it all, but it'll come out and you'll see that. We are, for the first time in a long, long time, issuing general obligation bonds, and that's for the new well and the iron filtration facility and the water tower. This is just too big of a nut to crack. We don't have the money to do that with cash. Staff got together with our attorneys and the bond counsels and all the people that know how to do this and figured out the cheapest way to do it. And the cheapest way to do it is with those general obligation bonds, but those will never show up on your tax bill because they're going to be paid for with TIF money. As the TIF continues to get more and more increment, we're going to use that money to pay off the bonds. So you'll never see those bonds on your tax bill. Even though it's an obligation, a general obligation of the community, we have a revenue stream to pay those bonds off. I would look at the last line. For a little community that hasn't borrowed money in decades, when they investigated our community, what rating did we get? The second best available. AAA is the best, AA plus is the second best. So that also tells you that Kevin's doing his job, and we are doing things the way they should be done. Very proud of that bond rating. Reducing property taxes, that's a hard one, but remember we went home rule in 2004. We promised that we would, even though we did not legally have to follow the tax cap, we made that promise to the community that we would follow the tax cap. In other words, not raise taxes more than the tax cap. We've never done that, and we intend to keep that going forward. When you look at your tax bill and you sigh or maybe cry a little bit, understand that most of that is not the city of Warrenville, roughly a 6%. I think in some parts of the community it's only 6%. For most of it's about 9%. So for every $1,000, the city doesn't get that. The city gets $90. So keep that in mind. We have a hardworking, lean staff, and we try to keep it that way. And again, private development is a good thing on a number of reasons, but remember that it takes X amount of dollars to run the government. We need that money no matter what, unless you want to cut services. The more people you have to pay that money, the less the individuals have to pay. So that's the idea behind development. It helps to keep your taxes low. So we actively have pursued a lot of these developments with good developers because we knew what that would mean to the community. Open space and environment. A few little things. We've already got such a beautiful setup with all the trails and everything. We enhance them whenever we can. We're working on solar power, trying to get more and more. We have a hybrid police vehicle ordered, but it's ordered. You know, it's coming. And I'm sure you've seen no, you probably didn't see those signs because you were all under the speed limit, so they didn't light up. Anyway, for those of you who follow the speed limit, if you go over the speed limit, it lights up and tells you you're speeding. Okay? See, you didn't know that, did you? Coal tar is a horrible thing to use in your community on a number of levels. It's no longer allowed in Warrenville, so we're working on a program to make sure that that doesn't get used by the professional people that come around and do that. Pathways, near and dear to my heart. The Trailhead Project, notice again, 2/3 of that is funded by outside grants. It's coming together. We're hoping by the middle of the year to have it completed, the landscaping in, the windows in the building, the washrooms working. It'll be really great when we have our festivals out there to have that building and the new walkways, and the memorial for the Prairie Path is there too, a seating place. It's going to be very, very nice. We're working on a path between Batavia Road and Meadow Avenue on Route 59. If you travel that at all, you know there's no way on your feet to get safely from one end to the other. We're trying to get that accomplished. It's a very, very complicated process. One of the things that makes government frustrating is that when you want to do something, the concept might make perfect sense, and you say, well, this is a no-brainer, but then you got to deal with 12 different agencies who have to sign off on it, or you have to get easements from somebody who says, oh, you want part of my property? That's pretty valuable property. There's always something that keeps you from getting it done as quickly as you would want, but that is in the works. We're committed to make that happen. The multi-use trail along Mack Road would go from McKee Marsh up to Route 59. If you've traveled on Mack Road on a bike or run or in any way traverse that other than a speeding car, you know that that's a very valuable asset for the people. We're hoping to get it done. We're still working with homeowners. We want to make sure that they feel like they're protected and we're not going to destroy their property. So it takes a little while again to get all the ducks in a row and get all the agencies in line. But the Forest Preserve District is supporting on this, supporting us, and we hope to see that coming soon for that safety factor. And here's a bunch of your money going out the window. Roads. As you know, in northern climates, roads are a big thing. I always enjoy the transition when Mary and I go to Miami to see our daughter. The farther south you go, the better condition the roads are in. Yeah, because they don't have winters like we have them. So that really tears the roads up. It's a constant investment, but I think it's rare that you find potholes in the city of Warrenville. Our staff takes care of them if they do come up, and we do have a regular rotation for replacing and fixing the roads, and we also do our due diligence to make sure we get a large percentage of outside either federal or state money to make those repairs. Some of the other things that we've done, you see guys out working on the trees. You can't just let the trees in the parkway grow wherever they're going to grow. You have to trim them and make sure that they get the right form and they stay healthy. All sorts of good things going on. A big one right down at the bottom, which you're probably not familiar with, I&I reduction program. That is the problem of our effluent, our sewer system, our wastewater all goes to Naperville for treatment. Okay, if the pipes leak and water gets into that system, those extra gallons of water go to Naperville and we have to pay to have them treated. So it's very, very important that our system has integrity and doesn't have leaks because it costs you more money because that water is leaking in that shouldn't be leaking in. So we have a program that we're in, I think, our third year around different parts of town where if you see smoke coming out of the ground, it's not a bomb. They're testing to make sure that there's leaks. When they see the smoke, they know they have a leak. So it's a dedicated program to try to eliminate those leaks and keep our sewer rates low, although we'll talk about that again too because that's, unfortunately, there's something else going on there. Federal surface transportation programs, again, outside money. All of these things are going to be paid for mostly with outside money. We can give you the exact numbers if you want them, but it's usually 3/4, at least half, where we get state money or federal money, which just makes sense. And staff, it's another thing they do to perfection. Whenever there's some money to be gained out there, they make sure that we apply for it, and we get it more often than we don't. Public safety. We have an active department that realizes the most important thing for public safety is a good relationship between the citizens and the police department. Now, Chief Toronto, that was his motto. He worked very hard at that, and I think was very successful. Our new chief, Sam Bonilla, is doing the same thing. We are trying to make sure that the community and the police department is connected. The fireworks education initiative, I hope you've seen that that is working, believe it or not. We had a citizen come to one of our meetings one time, and she had documented all the problems, and she came in not only with that, but she had all these papers showing, here's what you can do, here are some solutions, here's how you can work on it. Staff took those things, took them to the department. We instituted many of those things, and I've noticed last year that there was a lot less noise than there used to be for a shorter period of time. So sometimes enforcement and education together can really make a difference. And that's one of the things that we've been successful for. National Night Out, if you come to that at Cerny Park, 4 years in a row we've got a national award for that, for being one of the best in the country for a community our size. Again, another great initiative by the police department. People come, families come, it's delightful to see. You know, the future of a community is in kids, right? Some of us don't have to worry about that anymore, but those that do, we want you in Warrenville because that's the vitality of the community. Go to National Night Out. Kids, man, it's great to see. That's the future of Warrenville. We're getting those new families to come to our town and settle down. Toys for Tots, some of the other things, Special Olympics. We're going to have the people jumping in the ice water coming up on the 11th. That's always fun it's fun to watch. And the top of the list here, Chief Bonilla is in the back of the room. Chief, welcome to Warrenville. We're delighted to have you. Sam already has a distinguished career in police work. He came to us from Bloomingdale, where he was in effect the chief there. The more people I talked to when we were vetting Sam, the more people said, oh yeah, I know Sam, he's great. You're going to be lucky if you get him. Again and again and again from other law enforcement people. It's true. So we're very, very delighted to have him here. He knows what he's doing, and he's going to do a great job of taking our department to the next level. Ray Toronto did a phenomenal job over 17 years of taking our little mom and pop operation, turning it into a policy-driven police department that was well trained. Our officers can handle a crime from a stolen bicycle to a multiple murder in-house. They never used to be able to do that. We have the training. That's how you attract good officers. That's how you keep them. You make them, you get them good training so that you give them responsibility and they can do the job. Then they want to stay. So we have a nice mix of veteran officers who have been here for a while and a nice mix of new officers. I think virtually all of our new officers have at least a Bachelor of Arts degree. Is that right, Chief? That's the kind of people we attract. Professional people who want to be good cops. Says a lot for our system. The merit call-outs. Merit is Metropolitan Emergency Response and Investigation Team. I did it. You have to understand, I've been with DUCOM for like 17 years, and acronyms just make me crazy, so I got one right. At any rate, we're part of that. Our chief, Ray Toronto, was the first head of that. It's 300 of the best officers in DuPage County. If there's a big problem in your community, that can be put together in a very short time, and you have all that training, all that talent that's available to your community. So we're part of that. That's a good thing. Our officers continue to get training all the time in new things. This implemented license plate recognition system is a phenomenal thing too. Most of us have a concern about privacy, I guess, but this is how this thing works. You put it at key places that are high traffic of entrances and egress from your community. Something bad happens in Naperville, they know that something's coming our way by the license plate. We know when they've come into Warrenville. Or something bad happens in Warrenville and we have a license plate and they're leaving in Warrenville. That reader tells us they just left Warrenville. We can tell Naperville they're coming your way. So what it does is when there's some kind of a crime committed and there's a license plate associated with that, that's put out to all the communities around us because they're all doing the same thing. So this is a big thing to stop I guess one of the concerns that people have had that many times people come out from the city and they cause trouble. Well, pretty soon they're going to find out they're going to be identified when they come out from the city, and that will help solve that problem. So this is a real good thing for us. We were among the very first, the state mandated by 2025 that you have in-car cameras for the police officers. We did that already. The council allocated, I think it was $260-some-thousand. The officers all have those cameras. They love them. They're good for the officers. They're good for citizens. Now there can be no argument about what goes on because it's being recorded. The citizen's protected. The officer's protected. It's a good thing. So again, we were on the cutting edge of getting that done. We didn't wait to say, oh, we got to have it done in 2025. We better start thinking about it. No, let's do it now because it makes sense. And the department has supported that. Every time that falls over, I feel like I should stop it. Diversity, we're still working on. We have IDEC. That is I just have to stop and say, we have so many good volunteers on all of our commissions, and IDEC is one of them. And we do our best to encourage inclusion, diversity, equity, and awareness. That's what the acronym is for, by the way, if you didn't see that. Our multicultural festival last year that we did in conjunction with the Park District won a state award. The first one out of the box. So that's just the beginning for this program for us. I think in conjunction with the Park District, again, as partners, we're going to do it again this coming year. And it'll grow hopefully into one of our signature events. But this is part of, again, being intentional about what we consider to be what we want to be as a community. That's part of it. Oh, this is my favorite slide. We're talking about evolution of a community and renewal of a community. My brother put this together a number of years ago. The upper left-hand corner, that's the house that my mom and dad built in 1939 when they first got married, up on Lorraine Street. A couple of years later on the right, you'll see, oh, look at that handsome little guy in the middle. That's me. Yeah, I forgot, yeah. That's my mom and dad, my two brothers. You can see the house hasn't changed a lot, but the next photo in the center, you can see there's an addition on it that happened sometime in the early 60s. Then a little bit later as you go down, there's kind of how it looked for a number of years. And then finally, there's our 1953 Chevy that my dad had. But again, the idea that in a community, this is what happens. You get people who come and stay and they make an investment, and maybe it's a small investment at the beginning, but they love where they're at. They stay and they keep building on it, and it turns into something better as years go by. The house is still there. You won't recognize it. It's been remodeled on the outside so that it doesn't look like it did at all. But it's still there, and this is how communities grow, and this is one of the best things about Warrenville. We have a lot of folks who have done exactly the same thing as my folks. They came here, thought maybe they'd stay a while, they loved it, and they're still here. So I enjoyed that. I thought you might. Okay, 2023. And Dwight did used to say that, right? Onward and upward?
That, and keep looking up.
And keep looking up. And that's what we do. Okay, so we're going to go through the 6, again, goals for our strategic plan, which we're planning to do again. I guess I'm going to mention that. I got ahead of myself. Go ahead. That enterprise that we talked about, the remodeling of that restaurant complex, Casey's Good Food Stop gas station. I don't know, they come and go. I'll believe it when I see it, but it's on the books. The Cantera Logistics Facility, another potential use for Cantera. There are some vacancies in there. We get a lot of interest of people that want to come. We'll see which ones work out and which ones we can nurture into something that will be an addition to the community and not something that's going to be just taking up space and causing traffic problems. This one. A long time coming, another complicated situation. We are still working on this. I mentioned a couple of things earlier. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of time of getting everything together and get it all lined up. And we will keep you informed as to what the plans are. At some point, perhaps, it would be nice if it goes on long enough, Maybe the Votels will decide to retire and we can incorporate their property into it. But we've let them know that they're welcome to stay there as long as they want to stay. But their kids are out of college too. Maybe they're going to want to get rid of the business at some point. If we can incorporate that into the development all the way to the river, that would be very nice. But again, they're welcome to stay as long as they want to. We're working on that zoning map, again, to give us some flexibility. The missing middle component is somewhere between single-family homes and high-rise apartment buildings. There's a number of options in there, duplexes and that sort of thing, that we don't have a lot of that might be another good thing to have in terms of a housing product in the city of Warrenville. So we're looking to have a little flexibility to maybe get some of that to attract a different type of homeowner to town. So that's an important thing. Rental registration and inspection program, we have all wanted this for, I don't know, 10 years, but it involves additional staff. Basically, what we want to do with that is there are different kinds of landlords. There are the kind that you want in your community because they take care of their properties, they charge a fair rent, very careful about screening their renters, and they do a good job, and they're an asset to the community. Then you got those that this is just something to milk for money. They don't put any money into it. They don't care who they rent to. They cause us code enforcement issues and problems. The idea would be to make sure that we make these types of landlords want to be in Warrenville, and these types of landlords want to be somewhere else because we don't want to deal with them. So at some point we're going to be able to do that. There's a training program, and the landlords complain about it, but they find out it's to their benefit because when they meet a higher standard, they can charge a higher rent. And those who aren't willing to make investments in their properties, they'll go somewhere else and buy something and let it degrade there, and we'll maybe get something better. So that's a big thing for us. Building codes are always getting changed. This is really, really interesting if you want to get into it. I have a friend who's a builder, and he came by the shop the other day, and he was telling me all of the innovations now in new buildings. It's just phenomenal how things are changing. Just the insulation things, the materials that are available, roofing, siding, heat pumps instead of furnaces. I mean, stuff that's just phenomenal. It's coming. It's all going to change. So we have to be ready for that evolution because a lot of our older homes are somewhere not quite on the cutting edge. And at some point to bring those up, it's going to be interesting. Again, we go for grants as much as we can. ERP system. This is a really, with staff, if you want to close your ears, it's okay. We determined at some point, I think about 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, that the community was maturing in such a way that all of our disparate systems, computer systems for the different departments, the police department, code enforcement, couldn't speak to each other. Some of them were no longer supported by the companies that built them. It was a mishmash. It's not something you could go forward with. We went out with an RFP for somebody to help us put all this together under one umbrella. Enterprise Resource Planning is what ERP stands for. They made a great presentation to us. Sadly, maybe some of you know this from personal experience, there are people that make great presentations and then can't perform, and there are people who maybe don't do a good presentation but can't perform. We got the first kind. They were going to use us as a model to sell their new program all across the country, and boy, this sounded really great. They have not performed anywhere near where they should have. So we're in the process right now butting heads with them and making a temporary transition that we can use until we get the system that we really need. But it's been very, very frustrating, very time-consuming for the staff to have to deal with this. It happens. Some consultants are superb. We've had a bunch of those. Every once in a while you get one that really should be doing something else. And on top of that, we had like 5 different people running the thing. You know, one guy would leave and then they'd put a new guy on it and he'd have to figure out what was going on. And by the time he had halfway figured out, he'd leave and somebody else would come. It was just a nightmare. So when you hear ERP, don't bring it up with staff, okay? Financial reporting, as you see, we do that right. We're going to manage that debt service in a way that saves the community the most money. That was the decision was made of how to schedule this and structure this debt with what is the cheapest way for the community of Warrenville to do it and the safest way for the community. That's what we'll do. And then because we have an influx of new people in town, we're going to have to do a special census. And you say, well, what's the big deal? The big deal is like only nearly $300 per person per year. So if we get 1,000 more people, 2,000 more people, that's times $300 every single year of federal money. So it's important to be able to count everyone who lives in your community and make sure that you get the federal money that you're entitled to get. It's kind of an involved process, and it's relatively expensive, but the ROI is really quick. You spend the money, and all of a sudden you're getting that extra money right away. So that's coming up. The trailhead, yes, gonna get done. A Mack Road Bridge, the bridge is still safe, but it's close to the end of its useful and safe life, so it has to be replaced. We determined that it made sense to make the bridge wide enough to have a path on it because we want to have that path leading to the Route 59. So we're still working on that. It's coming maybe in 2024. We'll actually see some construction. That would be wonderful. But it's another step in making our community accessible and safe for bikers and walkers and runners, because that's what a small town should be, right? You should be able to get out of your car and enjoy your community. The multi-use pail along Route 59, coming along again, perhaps construction in 2025, but it's, again, these things take more than 1 year most of the time. And we talked about the other two. And millions of dollars again. The road programs are always very expensive, but again, they're in a rotating program for when they get done. There's always drainage problems that have to be dealt with. The resurfacing west of 59 is already in the program. The square courts, for those folks, that'll be a real nice thing for them to get those fixed up a little bit. Storm sewer improvements on the east side. I grew up on the east side. It was like living in a waterfall up there when I was a kid. Little by little, we're chipping away at that and making it so it's much better. And you may have noticed we've already got one of our water towers painted with the new logo. Looks beautiful, I think. We have a few more to do, but the Warrenville way is to wait until it's time to do it, not just change them all because we want to change them. So as they come onto the schedule to need to be repainted, that's when we'll repaint them, but not before that. Filling officer vacancies is a continuing problem. We have people test in very low numbers compared to what we used to have. I saw that a neighboring community to the west just had their test, and they had more people than they've had in a long, long time, and then I continued reading the article because they lowered their standards. They don't require a college degree anymore. Well, okay, of course you're going to get more people coming in. Do you want to do that? Okay, for you guys, we're not going to do that. We're still going to get good people, and we'll hold on until we get them. We're going to get more protection for the officers, more National Night Out type stuff, and the rental registration inspection program, again, would be probably under the umbrella of the police department. And the message that we want to get out is that Warrenville is open for business for whoever wants to live here. You're welcome. And we're trying to continue to diversify city employment. All of these things, again, a lot of them are relatively small things, but they all add up. As you start with these small things and you start changing people's attitudes, I wish every town could be a college town, because if you go to a college town and spend any time there, you meet people from all over the world, and all of a sudden you go, hey, there's nothing wrong with them. They're all good people. That's what we need. That's the strength of a community, is having that diversity and the realization that we're all people, we're all the same. We all have value. And when you get to know people one-on-one, it's a whole lot easier to accept that as reality, which it is. Okay. Memories. Remember I mentioned Danix Supermarket? That would be the one up in the left-hand corner at the top. It was also Pettit's at one time. That's Batavia Road going towards the bridge, going up the hill. That was a few years back, as you could tell by the automobile. Rizika Drugs, right below that, was a touchstone in Warrenville for many, many years. The old Mount Hardware is right over next to, and the building is still there. I believe it's a doctor's office now. It's been repurposed. The community building, before it had the addition on the front, before it was a library too, I think. And one on the top and the right, you should be able to recognize. Evelyn Eat Wine Shop is on the end there, and the bike shop now. That was a few years back also. And Bear Chevrolet in the middle, which looks a little different now, but still there. All of these things are still here except Pettit's and Danix. That's gone. That's going to be redeveloped. We hope we talked about that a little earlier, and something really nice for the community. But it's good to be reminded that Warrenville 1.0 was nice. It was a nice place to grow up. It was a good place, but you can't keep 1.0 forever because everything keeps changing. And so we're at 5.0 and counting, but we have to remember we had something good too. We've got something good now. We had something good then. And here's some of the newer stuff. Everton, this is the development down right next to City Hall, between the library and City Hall, the bottom left. 27 single-family homes on what was a contaminated industrial site. 4.25 acres that was unbuildable or unusable because of that contamination. We bought it. We spent 10 years to get it up to a standard where we could build on it. We found a good builder and now drive through that. The people that live there are so happy to be in Warrenville. People from Hinsdale, from all over. They love it. It's an asset to the community now as opposed to a debit. Of course, we have 6 hotels. We're grateful for the hotels. The one in the middle on the bottom is the IBEW building, which has won architectural awards. And the other one is, I know some of them have changed their names. I don't know what they are, but these are the new stuff. You might look at some of the architecture, some of us older folks, and say, well, that's not exactly what I would like. But believe me, they rent immediately. There's another demographic out there that likes that type of stuff. And that's important. That diversity is very, very important for the community. As we go 5.0 and forward, this is what we always try to do. This is behind the scenes stuff. This is how we try to treat each other at City Hall as we work as a team. We try to teach when we interact with our citizens, we think it's very important to keep all these values in mind. I put this up as a reminder to you can do this in your personal life too. It's not exclusive to the city of Warrenville. I highly recommend it. Treat your family this way. Treat your neighbors that way. Go to church and do the same thing. It'll be a better world. And one of my favorite songwriters, singers ever, Joni Mitchell, kind of summed up what I've been trying to say. Something's lost is something's gained in living every day, and that's true for communities especially. As you see the pictures of the older things that are now gone or repurposed into something entirely different, they're lost, but they're not lost. And what we've gained are better businesses. So keep that in mind too, that change is hard to put up with, but if it's managed and it's done carefully, the community can be a better place. So that's what we try to do here at the City of Warrenville. And I'm going to stop now because I see people going like this, and I don't want to have to throw my water at them, but I will. Comments and or questions. We'd welcome any kind of input. Yes, Sheila.
I was glad you noted about the special census because you have added so many people to Warrenville since the 2020 census. Are you eligible to do that now, and how long does that process take?
We are beginning the planning process, and we are eligible, I believe. Correct, Ron?
It was something like 2 years.
Yeah. We expect it'll take how long?
16 months.
Okay. So pretty quick. Right here?
I shouldn't ask, but there's still a Two Brothers sign on 59.
I knew someone would ask that.
You can just say forget it. They have.
I have no good news, so I'm hesitating. Their property is now up for sale. They're selling it. So the Two Brothers will not be there. All those beautiful plans that we saw, all those great things, not going to happen. They can't make it happen.
Hi. I love that you you say we have to adapt to change and all. I'm wondering, two questions quick. Any requirements or suggestions for these new apartments to have charging systems for electric vehicles?
No requirements yet, but always suggestions. If you know our Plan Commission chair, he's very much into that sort of thing, and he always brings it up. And especially the solar on the roof thing, the Warrenville Horizons, they get part of their power from a solar roof array. So we always try to heavily suggest it. Most of these big companies, they're not there yet. They're just not there yet.
And secondly, with this new well, are we going to save our Warrenville residents and power it with solar just because a well is the most efficient thing that can be powered with solar?
Partially. Not completely, but partially. There will be a solar array on the building. And I don't know the percentage that we're going to get, but yes, we do try to practice what we preach at every opportunity.
Thank you.
Sure. We're not done yet. I'm just getting warmed up. Oh, yeah. I talked about two brothers. I might as well talk about this. We have, yes. Oh, he's wondering about Naperville treating our wastewater and how that's going to affect things. We have a long-standing agreement with the city of Naperville to take all of our effluent and treat it. Okay, that's been in play for years. We are not in a position to do that ourselves. We have not the facility. We have no place for the facility. It would be tens of millions of dollars to build a facility, even if we had a place for it. So this is something that works just great for us. Their facility is aging. They're facing some new requirements for phosphorus in the effluent. They're facing requirements other that are going to make them having to upgrade their whole system. When we first started talking to them, it was an upgrade here, an upgrade there. It wasn't going to be so bad. That estimate was about $5 million, our part. Roughly 9% of what they process every year is from Warrenville. Okay? Well, now that they found these new requirements, equipment that has to be replaced and everything, the new estimate is $70 million. 9%, about $15 million. So all of a sudden, what we thought, we're going to have to come up with $5 million, we're going to have to come up with $15 million. We don't have a choice. They've treated us fairly. It's a good way to solve this problem for us. We have no other opportunity to do that. Our only thing is that we have to deal with it somehow. All I can say is two things. One, yes, your sewer bill is going to go up dramatically. We're going to try to stretch it out as long as we can. Naperville is really good working with us, but it's going to be expensive, and we can't get around it. So it'll be over a period of years. It's not going to be instant because their process is going to take them years to get done. But this is the reality that we have to deal with there. So.
On our rates, not on the taxes.
Right. And the other thing is, yeah, the sewer fund is what's called an enterprise fund. An enterprise fund has to be self-supporting, so it has to be supported by the ratepayers. So we can't throw money at it from the general account. We can't take money out of it and use it for other stuff. The people that use the system pay for the operation of the system, the repairs, and the replacement. That's the way it's set up. Sheila.
Thanks, Dave. Is none of that eligible for ARPA?
I don't know yet. We're still working on how to work it out. Staff is working with our attorney and with their people to try to figure out how we can do that. Maybe. That would be nice.
That would be good.
It would help. Nobody else? Oh, this is going to be embarrassing.
No.
I just know.
I was just going to say that I am going to look forward to having a conversation with you about our past and how you have brought up memories of things that have changed so much from our past to our future. And I was thinking that just listening to you and seeing some of those pictures, that there are so many things that you haven't mentioned that have gone in a positive direction and have changed. And I have my employers sitting behind me. But one of the things that you didn't mention it was the Park District itself and how it was once a grocery store where I used to get a nickel candy bar. And now is a wonderful place where I go every day to work with kids.
Good point. An excellent point. Soukup's grocery store. I remember it because when I was in college and I worked for Jay's Service and Supply, Ramon Martinez, cleaning businesses, I cleaned the wood, had a wood floor in Soukup's Hardware. And that building is still essentially there, but the Park District has changed it into a huge asset to the community. Thank you. There are a couple of places like that.
It went into the Stop and Rob.
Yes. Stop and rob, yes. Thank you, Mary. That was a good one that I was going to mention and I forgot. Anybody else? Well, the bottom line is the community's doing well. We've had some difficult times. We got through COVID with the intention, the expressed intention when we were faced with COVID, public safety is number one, taking care of our employees number two. And we accomplished both of those things. We had no furloughs at the City of Warrenville. We laid off no employees. Everyone who worked for the City of Warrenville before COVID is still working for the City of Warrenville. So again, we try to do things intentionally with the, I guess, the purpose of doing it right. I like to think that Warrenville, my motto for Warrenville, it got changed. Nobody liked my motto, but it's Warrenville naturally, which is really cool. I like that. But my motto that I thought was better was Warrenville, small town done right. What do you think, huh? Should we change it? Raise your hand. No one? John, thank you. If that's it, you're free to go home. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Thank you.
Let's stop and Rob, I don't know.